Matt Bernier, Dan Illman taking a look at another Kentucky Derby contender profile. This time we look at Jerry Hollendorfer's trainee, Instilled Regard. We're going to go back to his 2-year-old form. We're going to look at the Los Alamitos Futurity, where he gets into a pitched battle down the lane with a couple of horses that people are familiar with. Unfortunately, McKenzie, he's off of the trail, but we know Solomini, he's coming on the outside. Instilled Regard gets a little bit of pinball between them, Dan.
This was a nice effort considering it was his first start against winners, against two of those highly regarded Baffert trainees. You saw him get a little bit green with his lead changes in mid-stretch, and now he's just going to get bounced around. This was a really nice performance for a lightly raced horse that once cost 7 figures as a 2-year-old in training. And he kicked off his 3-year-old season the right way with a solid win in the Grade 3 Lecomte. He was really never going to lose that race. Since then, though, things have kind of gone off the cliff for Instilled Regard. I think very forgiving handicappers can say, in the Risen Star, that was a race where the pace just didn't come back to him, and he really was kind of up against it when they ran 1, 2, 3 around the track. And in the Santa Anita Derby last time out, it was kind of a similar situation where the best horse, Justify, got out there on an easy lead, and Instilled Regard couldn't close him down. Forgiving handicappers can say that. Unforgiving handicappers are going to say, well, at least I need to see him run in the Risen Star in the Santa Anita Derby. You and I are big fans of this horse. I'm not sure. I think there's a race for him and a pretty big one down the road. I'm not sure it's the Derby.
It's not an apples to apples comparison, but Instilled Regard and Solomini, two of those horses that we just took a look at, on paper, they look very similar, where it's almost as if they haven't gotten any faster. But like you just made mention, if you're one that's trying to make a case for a longer price, you could make maybe a far-fetched case. But at the same time, you could also spin it the other way if you're just being the, battle-hardened and stone-cold sort of handicapper and say they're just not fast enough.
I wrote a blog post about Instilled Regard's future chances, and it's up on drf.com/blogs right now after the Santa Anita Derby. I didn't think he ran badly. I just needed to see him run and at least finish third behind the big two in that race. And after the race, Jerry Hollendorfer didn't really think he was going to the Derby. He had mapped out a plan for maybe a race like the Affirmed in Southern California, and if things continued to go well and he would mature, we would see him in the bigger races in the late summer and early fall for 3-year-olds, maybe in Saratoga, maybe at Monmouth, maybe at Parks for the Pennsylvania Derby. There's no reason why this horse can't turn out to be a horse like Battle of Midway with a big race under his name. But boy, I needed to see some running in his last two. Maybe the pace was against him, but he just didn't fire. The comparison with Solomini can certainly be made from a speed figure standpoint. Solomini has at least been competitive with a couple of situations in his last 2 races, and Instilled Regard has not.
What do you think as far as pedigree is concerned? 1.25 miles. He's by Arch. Arch usually throws long distance runners. He's out of Forestry Mare. To me, I've always thought he wants to run all day. Where do you fall?
Well, we saw him really take his first breakout step in his maiden win, his first race around 2 turns, and he is supposed to be a 2-turn horse being by Arch. I'm really not worried about the pedigree. I'm really not worried about the pace scenario. This is a versatile horse. He can be placed in mid-pack. The pace is going to be fast. Maybe what he needs is just to come from behind with one big run in the stretch. There is something here with this horse. It just seems, though, like the Derby's kind of the wrong spot for him. I'm not sure where the right spot is, but I'm not sure it's the Derby.
Let's be kind and say Instilled Regard has clunked his way into a starting spot in the gate for the Kentucky Derby. We'll find out if a number of things come together and he can somehow be successful for Jerry Hollendorfer.